single dad working a catering shift makes one mistake in front of the wrong woman, a tech billionaire known for destroying careers over less. But instead of being fired, he's offered a deal that could change everything. What starts as survival becomes something far more dangerous when the lines between business and truth begin to blur, and the world they've both built starts to crack. Will he risk losing everything he's fought to protect, or walk away from the one person who finally sees him? If you're hooked, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Noah Hayes stood at the corner of the rooftop terrace, sweating through his white button-down despite the cool evening breeze. The city stretched out behind him, glittering and indifferent, while around him people in clothes that cost more than his rent sipped champagne and laughed at jokes he didn't understand. He wasn't supposed to be here, not really. He was supposed to be invisible, just another body in black and white, carrying trays and refilling glasses. But Marcus, the catering company manager, had called him 3 hours ago in a panic. Someone hadn't shown. The client was important. The pay was double. Noah had said yes before Marcus finished talking because his daughter's preschool tuition was due in 4 days and his bank account had $217 in it. So here he was, balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres he couldn't pronounce, trying not to make eye contact with anyone who looked like they belonged. "Excuse me." Noah turned. A woman stood beside him, mid-20s maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless but probably wasn't. She wore a charcoal blazer over a silk blouse, simple jewelry, no wedding ring. Her expression was unreadable. "Yes, ma'am?" She picked up one of the small pastries from his tray, examined it briefly, then set it on a napkin without eating it. "You're new." It wasn't a question, but Noah nodded anyway. "First time working this kind of event, I can tell." She didn't say it meanly, just matter of fact. "You keep standing in the same spot, makes you conspicuous. You're supposed to circulate." Noah felt heat crawl up his neck. "Right. Sorry." "Don't apologize." She tilted her head slightly, studying him in a way that made him feel like a specimen under glass. "What's your name?" "Noah." "Noah what?" "Hayes." She nodded once, as if filing it away. "Lila Grant." The name didn't mean anything to him, but the way she said it suggested it should. He shifted his weight, the tray growing heavier. "I should probably—" "How old are you?" The question threw him. 32. "And you work for—" "Prestige Catering, but it's just part-time. I do contracting work mostly. Construction, renovations, whatever I can pick up." Lila's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in calculation. "You have a family?" Noah hesitated. He didn't know why this woman was asking, didn't know what the right answer was. But something about the directness in her gaze made him tell the truth. "A daughter. She's 4. "Wife?" "No, just me." Lila nodded again, that same filing away gesture. Then she reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a business card. Plain white, black text. No logo. Just a name, a number, and an email address. "I might have something for you," she said, "if you're interested in making more than you do carrying trays." Noah took the card, confused. "What kind of something?" "The kind that requires discretion and adaptability. You'd be attending events like this one, not as staff." He stared at her. "I don't understand." "You will if you call." Lila glanced past him, her attention already shifting. "Think about it, but don't take too long." She walked away before he could respond, disappearing into the crowd like she'd never been there. Noah looked down at the card in his hand, then slipped it into his pocket and went back to work. 2 days later, Noah sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from his apartment, turning Lila Grant's business card over in his fingers. He'd Googled her the night before. 28 years old, founder and managing partner of Meridian Ventures, a tech investment firm that had backed 3 companies now worth over $1 billion each. She'd been featured in Forbes, Bloomberg, TechCrunch. The articles called her ruthless, visionary, intimidating. He had no idea why someone like that would want anything to do with him, but his bank account still had $217 in it. Preschool tuition was still due, and Mia's doctor had called yesterday about scheduling her follow-up appointment, which meant another copay he couldn't afford. He pulled out his phone and dialed before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the second ring. "Lila Grant?" Hi, this is Noah Hayes. We met at... I know who you are. Are you calling because you're interested or because you're curious? Both, I guess. Fair enough. There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. Can you meet tomorrow? 2 o'clock. There's a restaurant called Aurelius on 5th. Do you know it? No, but I can find it. Good. Wear something decent, not a catering uniform. I don't... But she'd already hung up. Aurelius turned out to be the kind of place where the host looked at Noah like he'd wandered in by mistake. The ceilings were high, the lighting warm and low, the tables spaced far enough apart that conversation stayed private. Noah had worn his only suit, navy blue, a little worn at the elbows, bought for his sister's wedding 3 years ago. It didn't fit quite right anymore, a little tight across the shoulders from the manual labor he'd been doing, but it was the best he had. Lila was already seated when the host led him to a corner table. She wore black today, sleek and professional, her hair down but still controlled. She didn't stand, just gestured to the chair across from her. You're on time. That's good. Noah sat, acutely aware that he didn't belong here. You want to tell me what this is about? Lila folded her hands on the table. I need someone to accompany me to certain events. Dinners, galas, investor meetings, industry conferences. Someone who can hold a conversation, follow social cues, and not embarrass me. You need a date. I need a companion. There's a difference. Noah frowned. I don't get it. You're successful. He stopped himself, unsure how to finish that sentence without sounding stupid. Attractive? Lila's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Yes, but in my world, being young, female, and successful makes people uncomfortable. They don't take me seriously unless I fit into a narrative they recognize. I've tried ignoring it, tried proving myself over and over, and it works to a point. But perception still matters. Having someone beside me changes the dynamic. It shifts how I'm seen. So you want me to be, what? Arm candy? I want you to be present, engaged, believable. She leaned back slightly. I'm not looking for someone to fawn over me or play a part badly. I'm looking for someone genuine. Someone who doesn't already belong in that world, because the people who do are predictable. You're not. Noah shook his head. You don't even know me. I know enough. You work multiple jobs to support your daughter. You showed up to that event on short notice and did the work even though you were clearly uncomfortable. You didn't try to impress me when we spoke. Most people do. She paused. And you're not bad looking, which helps, but it's not the main thing. He didn't know whether to be flattered or insulted. What's the pay? $2,000 per event. More if it requires travel or overnight stays. I'll cover wardrobe, transportation, anything you need. You'll attend roughly 2 to 3 events per month, sometimes more depending on my schedule. Noah did the math in his head. Even at 2 events a month, that was $4,000. Enough to cover tuition, medical bills, groceries, maybe even start saving. It felt too good to be real. What's the catch? Lila met his eyes, steady and unflinching. The catch is that once you agree, you're all in. No half measures. If you show up fully. You don't disappear halfway through because it gets uncomfortable or complicated. I need reliability. And if I say no, then you say no. I'll find someone else. Noah thought about Mia, about the stack of overdue notices on his kitchen counter, about the constant weight of never having enough. He thought about his daughter's face when he had to tell her they couldn't go to the zoo this weekend because he couldn't afford the gas. Okay, he said. I'm in. Lila extended her hand across the table. Good. We start Friday. Friday came faster than Noah expected. Lila had sent over details the day before. Location, dress code, background on the event. It was a private dinner hosted by a venture capital firm, invitation only, 20 guests. His role was simple. Be present, be polite, defer to her when necessary, but don't be invisible. She'd also sent a tailor to his apartment. The man had measured him without comment, taken notes, and left. The next morning, a garment bag appeared at Noah's door containing a charcoal suit that fit perfectly, a white dress shirt, and a tie he didn't recognize the brand of, but suspected was expensive. Mia had watched him get dressed with wide eyes. You look fancy, Daddy. I have to go to a work thing tonight, sweetheart. Grandma's going to come stay with you. Is it a party? Sort of. She'd hugged his leg and he'd felt the weight of what he was doing settle over him. This wasn't just about money. It was about building something stable for her, something that didn't involve scrambling every month. Lila picked him up at 7. She drove herself, a sleek black Tesla that moved through the city like it owned the streets. She wore deep green tonight, a dress that was elegant without trying too hard, her hair swept up.
"You clean up well," she said as he climbed into the passenger seat. "Thanks, you too." She glanced at him, amused. "You're nervous." "Yeah. Don't be. Just follow my lead. If someone asks how we know each other, tell them we met through mutual friends. Keep it vague, don't volunteer information, but don't be evasive either. And whatever you do, don't let anyone intimidate you. Half of these people are bluffing their way through life just like everyone else." The dinner was held in a penthouse overlooking the river. The space was immaculate, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art on the walls, waitstaff that moved like ghosts. Noah recognized a few faces from business news, people whose names he'd heard but never thought he'd meet. Lila introduced him without ceremony. "This is Noah Hayes. Noah, this is Richard Castellan, managing partner at Apex Capital." Richard was in his 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of confident handshake that bordered on aggressive. "Hayes, what do you do, Noah?" "I work in construction, renovations mostly." Richard's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Interesting, not the usual crowd Lila runs with." "That's kind of the point," Lila said smoothly and steered Noah toward the bar. The evening unfolded in a series of careful conversations. Noah quickly learned that the trick wasn't to talk much. It was to listen, to ask the right follow-up question, to let people fill the silence with their own self-importance. He watched Lila work the room, watched how she shifted tones depending on who she was talking to, how she could be sharp with one person and warm with another without ever seeming fake. At one point, a woman in a red dress cornered them near the windows. She was younger than most of the other guests, early 30s maybe, with an edge to her smile. "Lila, I didn't expect to see you here." "Claire." Lila's tone was cordial but cool. "I didn't realize you were on the invite list." "Last-minute addition. You know how Richard is." Claire's gaze slid to Noah. "And who's this?" "Noah Hayes," he said, extending his hand. Claire shook it, her grip brief. "Claire Devereaux. I run acquisitions for Helix Group." She looked back at Lila. "Didn't know you were seeing anyone." "I don't announce my personal life on LinkedIn," Lila replied. Claire laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course not. That would be too transparent." She sipped her wine. "How long have you two been together?" "A few months," Lila said before Noah could answer. Fast work." Claire's smile turned sharper. "Well, enjoy the evening. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." She drifted away, and Noah glanced at Lila. "Friend of yours?" "Competitor. She's been trying to poach one of my portfolio companies for the last 6 months." "She seemed hostile?" "Yes, that's Claire. She doesn't like that I'm younger and doing better." Noah nodded slowly. "This whole thing is like a chess game, isn't it?" Lila looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. "Exactly like that." Thanks. The night ended just after 11. Lila drove him home in silence, the city lights sliding past the windows. Noah felt drained in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. It was the effort of staying sharp, of not saying the wrong thing, of constantly being watched. "You did well," Lila said as she pulled up outside his building. "I barely said anything." "You didn't have to. You were there, you were present, and you didn't fold under pressure. That's what matters." She put the car in park but left the engine running. "Same time next week. Another dinner, different crowd." Noah unbuckled his seatbelt but didn't get out yet. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Why me, really? You could hire an actor, someone trained for this." Lila was quiet for a moment. "Because actors perform. I don't need a performance. I need someone who doesn't have to pretend to be real." She looked at him. "You're uncomfortable in that world, but you don't hide it. That's rare. Most people either fake confidence or crumble. You just exist. It's disarming." Noah didn't know what to say to that. "Get some sleep," Lila said. "I'll send details tomorrow." He climbed out of the car, watched her drive away, and stood on the sidewalk for a long moment before heading inside. What? Over the next month, the events blurred together.
A gallery opening where everyone spoke in hushed tones about art Noah didn't understand. A fundraiser for a tech nonprofit where he shook hands with a senator. A rooftop cocktail party where Lila introduced him to a man who just sold his company for $300 million and acted like it was no big deal. Noah learned to navigate it. He learned the unspoken rules, when to speak, when to stay quiet, how to deflect questions without seeming rude. He learned that most of the people in Lila's world were terrified of being exposed as frauds, which made them either overly aggressive or painfully insecure. And he learned that Lila was better at this than anyone gave her credit for. She wasn't just smart, she was strategic, always 3 steps ahead, always reading the room. But there were moments, brief and fleeting, when he saw the effort it took. The way her jaw tightened when someone dismissed her opinion. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes when she had to laugh at a bad joke. They didn't talk much outside of the events. Communication happened through texts, logistics, schedules, reminders. But slowly, something shifted. She started asking his opinion, not about business, but about smaller things. Which restaurant to choose for a meeting, whether a particular dress was too much for a daytime event, what he thought of someone they'd met. It felt like trust, though Noah wasn't sure if that was the right word. One night, after a particularly exhausting investor gala, Lila offered to drive him home as usual, but instead of heading straight there, she pulled into an empty parking lot overlooking the river. "I need a minute," she said, cutting the engine. Noah didn't argue. They sat in silence, the water dark and vast in front of them. "Do you ever feel like you're playing a role even when you're not?" Lila asked suddenly. Noah thought about it. "Yeah, most of the time, actually." "With your daughter?" "No, never with her." He paused. "But everywhere else, yeah. Like I'm trying to be the version of myself that fits what people need." Lila nodded, staring out at the water. "I've been doing this for so long, I'm not sure I know who I am when I'm not performing." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to him. "For what it's worth," Noah said quietly, "I think the person you are when you're not performing is probably worth knowing." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and for a moment the carefully controlled mask slipped. He saw exhaustion there, loneliness, the weight of always having to be the smartest, the sharpest, the most in control. "Thank you," she said. They didn't talk about it again. But something had changed. The breaking point came 6 weeks in. It was a tech summit, one of the biggest events of the year. Lila had warned him it would be high pressure. Investors, founders, journalists, everyone trying to make deals or break stories. She'd been tense all morning, her texts clipped and businesslike. Noah arrived at the venue early, dressed in another suit Lila had sent over. The space was massive, all glass and steel, filled with people who moved with purpose. He found Lila near the registration desk, talking to a man in an expensive watch and a permanent smirk. "Noah?" she said as he approached. "This is Jason Kraft. He runs Dominion Capital." Jason looked Noah up and down with the kind of casual arrogance that set Noah's teeth on edge. "Hayes, right? Lila mentioned you." "Did she?" "Yeah, said you're in construction." Jason's smirk widened. Must be interesting going from hammering nails to rubbing elbows with the tech elite. Noah felt Lila stiffen beside him, but he kept his voice even. "It's different, sure, but people are people. Doesn't matter if you're building houses or building companies." Spoken like someone who's never built a company. "Jason!" Lila's voice was sharp. "We're running late. Excuse us." She steered Noah away before he could respond, her hand tight on his arm. They walked in silence until they were out of earshot. "Sorry about that," she said. "Jason's an ass." "I've met worse." "Still, he was out of line." She glanced at him. "You handled it well." "I didn't handle it. I just didn't punch him." Lila almost smiled. "That counts." The summit was a marathon. Panel discussions, networking sessions, endless small talk. Noah stayed close to Lila, falling into the rhythm they'd developed. But he could feel the tension building in her, the way her responses grew sharper as the day wore on. It all came to a head during the evening reception. Claire Devereaux was there, holding court near the bar with a cluster of investors. She spotted Lila and waved her over with a smile that made Noah's instincts flare. "Lila, come join us. We were just talking about Meridian's latest fund." Lila approached cautiously, Noah trailing behind. What about it? Oh, just that the returns have been modest, compared to projections, anyway. Claire's tone was light, almost playful, but her eyes were cold. Some people are wondering if you're losing your edge. Some people talk too much, Lila replied. Maybe. Or maybe they're just noticing a pattern. Claire turned to the group. Lila's always been brilliant, don't get me wrong, but brilliance only gets you so far when you're trying to prove something. Sometimes it makes you reckless. Noah saw the flash of anger in Lila's eyes before she buried it. I'm not trying to prove anything to you, Claire. Of course not, but you are trying to prove something. That's why you're here with... Claire gestured vaguely at Noah. Well, whatever this is. The group had gone quiet, watching. Noah stepped forward before he could think better of it. You know what I've noticed, he said, his voice calm but cutting. People who spend all their time talking about other people's work usually aren't doing much of their own. Claire's smile faltered. Excuse me? You heard me. You've spent the last 2 minutes tearing Lila down instead of talking about anything you've actually accomplished. That tells me everything I need to know. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. Claire's face went red. Who the hell do you think you are? She snapped. Someone who doesn't have time for this. Noah looked at Lila. We done here? Lila's expression was unreadable, but she nodded. Yeah, we're done. They walked away together, leaving Claire fuming behind them. Passé. Lila didn't speak until they were outside, standing in the cool night air. Then she turned to him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked genuinely shaken. You didn't have to do that. I know. You just made an enemy. Claire has a long memory. So do I. Lila shook her head, something like disbelief in her eyes. Why? Why risk it? Noah met her gaze. Because she was wrong, and someone needed to say it. For a long moment, Lila just stared at him. Then, slowly, she smiled. Not the controlled professional smile she wore at events, a real one. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't mention it. They stood there in the dark, the noise of the city around them, and Noah realized something he'd been avoiding for weeks. This wasn't just a job anymore, and that was going to be a problem. Noah couldn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of his small bedroom, replaying the confrontation with Claire over and over. The look on her face, the silence that followed, the way Lila had smiled at him afterward, genuine, unguarded, real. He'd crossed a line. He knew that. This was supposed to be simple. Show up, look presentable, don't cause problems. Instead, he'd inserted himself into Lila's world in a way that went beyond the arrangement. He'd defended her, publicly, against someone who clearly had power and connections. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Lila. You awake? Noah hesitated, then typed back. Yeah, can't sleep either. He waited, watching the 3 dots appear and disappear several times before her next message came through. What you did tonight was stupid. Noah felt his stomach drop, but it was also the most honest thing anyone's done for me in years. Thank you. He read it twice, then set the phone down without responding. What was he supposed to say to that? The next morning, Mia bounced into his room at 6:30, already dressed in mismatched clothes she'd picked out herself. Purple leggings, a yellow shirt with a dinosaur on it, and her light-up sneakers. Daddy, you promised we could go to the park today. Noah groaned, pulling the pillow over his face. I did, didn't I? Yep. You said if I was good all week, we'd go feed the ducks. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Mia climbed onto the bed beside him, her hair a wild tangle of curls that reminded him painfully of her mother. 4 years, and some days it still felt like yesterday. Other days, it felt like a lifetime ago. Okay, sweetheart, let me make breakfast first. They spent the morning at the park. Mia threw torn pieces of bread at the ducks with the kind of fearless enthusiasm only a 4-year-old could muster, shrieking with delight every time one of them got too close. Noah sat on a bench, watching her, feeling the weight of everything settle back into place. This was real. His daughter, the park, the simple rhythm of their life together, the world he'd been stepping into with Lila, the fancy dinners, the power plays, the careful performances. That wasn't real. Not for him, anyway. He was just visiting. His phone buzzed. Another text from Lila. Lunch tomorrow? I want to talk about next steps.
Noah typed back quickly. Sure. Where? I'll come to you. Send me your address.
He paused, looking around at the park, at the playground equipment that needed repairs, at the fence with graffiti on it. Then he looked at Mia, who was now trying to convince a particularly stubborn duck to take bread directly from her hand. He sent Lila his address. She showed up at noon the next day, driving a different car this time, something smaller, less flashy. Noah watched from the window as she parked and climbed out, dressed down in jeans and a simple sweater. It was the most casual he'd ever seen her. He opened the door before she could knock. Hey. Hey. Lila glanced past him into the apartment. Can I come in? Yeah, of course. Sorry. It's a mess. It wasn't, really. Noah kept the place clean because Mia had a talent for turning any space into chaos within minutes if he didn't stay on top of it. But compared to the penthouses and luxury venues he'd been visiting, his one-bedroom apartment probably looked like a shoebox. Lila stepped inside, taking it all in without judgment. The worn couch, the small kitchen table, the toys scattered in the corner, the drawings Mia had taped to the walls. Where's your daughter? My mom took her for the afternoon. I thought it'd be better to talk without a 4-year-old interrupting every 5 seconds. Lila smiled. Probably smart. Noah gestured to the couch. You want something to drink? I've got coffee, water, juice boxes. Coffee's good. He made it in the cheap drip machine he'd had since college, hyper-aware of how domestic this all felt. Lila Grant, tech investor and millionaire, sitting on his sagging couch while he poured coffee into mugs that didn't match. He handed her one and sat in the chair across from her. So, next steps. Lila wrapped her hands around the mug, looking down at it. I want to be honest with you about something. Noah's chest tightened. Okay. When I started this arrangement, it was purely strategic. I needed someone beside me to change perception, and you fit the profile. I didn't expect... She trailed off, searching for words. I didn't expect to actually like having you around. Noah didn't know what to say to that. You're different, Lila continued. You don't bullshit me. You don't try to impress me or use me as a stepping stone to something else. And the way you handled Claire, she shook her head. Most people in my world would have stayed silent or tried to smooth it over. You just called her out. Do you know how rare that is? I wasn't trying to be rare. I was just pissed off. Exactly. You were genuine, and that's exactly what I need more of. Lila set the mug down on the coffee table. I want to increase the frequency of events, maybe 4 or 5 per month instead of 2 or 3, which means more money, but also more of your time. Noah leaned back, processing. That's a lot. I know, and I know you have your daughter to think about. I'm not asking you to drop everything, but I need someone I can count on, and right now, that's you. He thought about the money. 4 or 5 events at $2,000 each. That was $8,000 to $10,000 a month. That was stability. That was Mia's preschool paid in full, medical bills cleared, maybe even a small cushion for emergencies. But it was also more time in a world that didn't feel like his. More performances, more scrutiny, more risk. Can I think about it? Lila nodded. Of course. Take a few days, but Noah, she met his eyes. If you do this, I need you all in. Not just showing up, but really being present. Because after what happened with Claire, people are going to be watching you more closely, and I need to know you can handle that. What if I can't? Then we stop. No hard feelings, but I think you can. She stood, smoothing her jeans. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Noah walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold, looking back at him. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I'm glad it's you. Then she was gone, leaving Noah alone with a decision he wasn't sure how to make. He talked to his mom about it that evening, after Mia had gone to bed. Linda Hayes was 62, sharp as ever, with the kind of no-nonsense attitude that had gotten her through raising 3 kids on a secretary's salary after Noah's father left. She sat at his kitchen table, drinking tea and listening as he explained the situation. So let me get this straight, she said when he finished. This woman is paying you thousands of dollars to go to fancy parties with her. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Linda raised an eyebrow. Because it sounds pretty straightforward to me. You show up, you look nice, you don't embarrass her. That's the job. It's not just about the job anymore, Mom. Noah struggled to find the words. She's starting to trust me. rely on me. And I don't know if I can handle that kind of responsibility. Linda set her mug down, fixing him with the look that had terrified him as a teenager. Noah Michael Hayes. You've been handling responsibility since you were 28 years old and your wife died, leaving you with a newborn baby and a mountain of medical debt. You think attending parties is harder than that? It's different. How? Because with Mia, I know what I'm doing. I'm her dad. That makes sense. But this, being part of Lila's world, I don't belong there. I'm faking it. Everyone's faking it, sweetheart. That's the secret nobody tells you. The people in suits, the people with money, the people who look like they have it all figured out, they're all just making it up as they go. Linda reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. The question isn't whether you belong there. The question is whether the money is worth your time, and only you can answer that. Noah looked at his mother, this woman who'd sacrificed everything to give her kids a stable life, and realized she was right. This wasn't about belonging. It was about survival, about building something better for Mia. I think I'm going to say yes, he said. Linda smiled. Good. Now pour me some more tea and tell me about this woman. Is she pretty? Mom. What? I'm just asking. Noah texted Lila the next morning. I'm in. 4 to 5 events a month. Let's do it. Her response came back within minutes. Good. First one is Thursday. Black tie. I'll send details. Thursday turned out to be a charity gala at the city's Natural History Museum. The theme was Innovation and Conservation, which seemed to be an excuse for tech executives to feel good about themselves while drinking expensive wine under a suspended blue whale. Lila picked Noah up at 6. She wore midnight blue, a gown that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated, her hair swept up in a way that showed off her neck. Noah wore the tuxedo that had appeared at his door that morning, perfectly tailored, with a bow tie he'd had to YouTube how to tie. You look good, Lila said as he climbed into the car. You too. This one's going to be different, she said as they pulled into traffic. More press, more cameras. There's a red carpet. Just stay close to me, smile when appropriate, and if anyone asks you questions, keep your answers short and redirect to me. Red carpet. Noah felt his stomach twist. Like actual paparazzi? Not paparazzi. Event photographers, trade press, but yes, actual cameras. She glanced at him. You okay? Define okay. Nervous but functional. Then yeah, I'm okay. The museum was lit up like a palace, lights cutting through the evening darkness. Lila pulled up to valet parking, handed over her keys, and took Noah's arm as they approached the entrance. The red carpet was chaos. Photographers called out names, flashes went off in rapid succession, people posed and smiled with practiced ease. Lila navigated it like she'd done it 1,000 times, stopping at designated marks, turning slightly for better angles, keeping her expression serene and confident. Noah tried to do the same, but he felt exposed in a way he never had before. Every movement felt too stiff, every smile too forced. He was acutely aware that tomorrow, pictures of him would exist on the internet, attached to Lila's name, and there was nothing he could do about it. Lila, over here! A woman with a press badge waved them over. Lila guided Noah toward her, her hand warm on his arm. Lila Grant, Tech Daily. Can we get a quick comment about Meridian's recent investments? We're excited about our portfolio's growth, Lila said smoothly, especially our clean energy sector. We think innovation and sustainability go hand in hand. And who's your guest tonight? Lila smiled. This is Noah Hayes. The reporter's eyes shifted to Noah with interest. Noah, how do you know Lila? Noah remembered the script. Keep it vague. We met through mutual friends. Turns out we have a lot in common. Such as? A belief that real value comes from building things that last. It wasn't a lie, exactly, just carefully worded. The reporter smiled, satisfied, and moved on to the next person. Inside, the museum had been transformed. The main hall glittered with tables draped in white, centerpieces of orchids and candles, waitstaff moving through the crowd with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The blue whale hung overhead, silent and massive, watching everything. Noah recognized some faces from previous events. Richard Castellan was there, holding court near the bar. Jason Kraft stood by one of the fossil displays, laughing too loudly at something. and Claire Devereaux across the room locked eyes with Noah for just a moment before deliberately looking away. "She's still pissed," Noah murmured to Lila. "Good. Let her be." Lila accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Come on, there's someone I want you to meet." She led him through the crowd to a quiet corner where an older man stood alone, studying a display of ancient pottery. He was maybe 70, with white hair and kind eyes, dressed in a tuxedo that looked like it had been made in the 1980s and maintained ever since. "Martin," Lila said warmly. The man turned, his face lighting up. "Lila, I was hoping you'd be here." They embraced briefly, and Lila gestured to Noah. "Martin, this is Noah Hayes. Noah, Martin Reeves. He was my professor at Stanford, business ethics and corporate responsibility." Martin extended his hand. "The infamous Noah. Lila's told me about you." Noah shook his hand, surprised. "She has?" "Indeed. She says you have an unusually strong moral compass for someone in her current orbit." Martin's eyes twinkled. "I take that as a compliment to both of you." "Martin's the reason I got into venture capital in the first place," Lila said. "He convinced me that money could be a tool for good if you used it right." "And you've proven me correct," Martin replied. "Though I wish you'd take more time to enjoy what you've built. You're always working." "That's what it takes." "Is it?" Martin looked at Noah. "What do you think, Noah? Does success require complete sacrifice?" Noah considered the question carefully. "I think it depends on what you're trying to succeed at. If you're trying to build something meaningful, yeah, it takes sacrifice. But if you sacrifice so much that you lose sight of why you started, then what's the point?" Martin smiled. "I like him, Lila. He's wise." "He's practical," Lila corrected. "It's refreshing." They talked for a while longer, Martin asking Noah about his work, his daughter, his life. It felt less like an interrogation and more like genuine curiosity. Noah found himself relaxing, talking about things he rarely discussed, how much he'd learned from renovating old houses, how Mia had his wife's laugh, how some days felt impossible, but he did them anyway. "You're a good father," Martin said eventually. "That's the hardest job there is." "I'm trying." "That's all any of us can do." Dinner was announced, and they moved to their assigned table. Noah found himself seated between Lila and a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen, a marine biologist who'd spent the last decade studying coral reef restoration. She was passionate, brilliant, and had no interest in small talk about tech investments, which Noah found deeply relieving. "So you're not in tech," Patricia said, more statement than question. "Construction, renovations." "Thank God. I was worried Lila had finally caved and started dating another venture capitalist." Patricia sipped her wine. "No offense to your profession, Lila." "None taken," Lila replied, amused. "It's not dating," Noah said automatically, then realized how defensive that sounded. "I mean, we're complicated?" Patricia offered. "That's what everyone in this room is, complicated and overcompensating for something." She leaned closer to Noah, her voice dropping. "Want to know a secret? Half the people here don't actually care about conservation. They're here because it looks good. The other half care deeply, but have no idea how to help beyond writing checks. You know which group is more useful? The ones writing checks? Exactly. At least they're honest about their limitations." She sat back. "But you build things with your hands. You create something tangible. That's real value. Don't let anyone here make you feel less than because you don't deal in abstractions." Noah glanced at Lila, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I like her," he said. "Most people do," Lila replied. "Patricia doesn't suffer fools." "Neither do you." "True, but I'm better at hiding it." Dinner passed in a blur of courses. Salads with ingredients Noah couldn't identify, fish prepared in ways that seemed designed to impress rather than satisfy, desserts that were more art than food. Speeches were made, donations pledged, applause offered. Noah watched it all with a growing sense of surrealism. This was his life now. At least a few nights a month. After dinner, people mingled again. Noah excused himself to find the restroom, navigating through the crowd. He'd just rounded a corner when someone grabbed his arm. Jason Kraft stood there, drink in hand, that same smirk plastered on his face. "Hayes, got a minute?" Noah pulled his arm free. "Not really." Come on, just a friendly conversation. Jason gestured to a quiet alcove away from the main crowd. I wanted to apologize for the other day. I came on a little strong.
Noah followed reluctantly, instincts warning him this wasn't actually an apology. It's fine. Good, good. Look, I'm just going to be straight with you. Jason set his drink down on a nearby ledge. Whatever you and Lila have going on, it's not going to last. Excuse me? I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm trying to help you. Lila doesn't do relationships. She does transactions. Everything with her is a calculation. And right now you're useful to her because you're different. You're novel. But the second that wears off, or the second you stop being useful, she'll drop you. That's just how she operates. Noah kept his voice level. You don't know anything about her. I know more than you think. I've been in this world a lot longer than you have. Jason leaned in slightly. She's brilliant. I'll give her that. But she's also ruthless. She has to be. That's how she got where she is. And you, he looked Noah up and down. You're out of your depth. This isn't your world, and it never will be. Maybe not, Noah said quietly. But at least I don't spend my time tearing other people down to feel better about myself.
Jason's smirk faded. Watch yourself, Hayes. You made an enemy in Claire. You don't want to make another one in me. Is that a threat? It's advice from someone who's seen how this story ends. Jason picked up his drink and walked away, leaving Noah standing alone in the alcove. Noah's hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists, forcing himself to breathe slowly. Jason was trying to get under his skin, and it had worked. But the worst part was that some of what he'd said rang true. Noah was out of his depth. This wasn't his world. And eventually, Lila would realize that. He found her near the museum's planetarium entrance, talking to a small group of investors. She caught his eye, excused herself, and walked over. You okay? You look tense. I'm fine. Just ran into Jason. Lila's expression hardened. What did he say? Doesn't matter. Noah. He met her eyes. He said you're going to get tired of me eventually, that I'm just a novelty. Lila was quiet for a moment. Then she took his arm and led him away from the crowd, through a doorway marked Staff Only, into a dimly lit hallway lined with storage crates. Listen to me, she said, her voice low and fierce. Jason Kraft is a mediocre investor with an inflated ego who's been trying to undermine me since I started Meridian. He goes after anyone he thinks is close to me because he's too much of a coward to come after me directly. Whatever he said to you was designed to create distance between us. Don't let him. But what if he's right? What if I am just... You're not. Lila cut him off. You're not a novelty. You're not a transaction. You're... She stopped, something flickering across her face. Uncertainty. Vulnerability. You're the first person in years who's treated me like a human being instead of a business opportunity. That's not nothing. Noah searched her face, looking for the mask, the performance, but all he saw was someone who'd been carrying too much weight for too long. Okay, he said softly. I believe you. Leela nodded, composing herself. Good. Now, let's get back out there before people start gossiping about where we disappeared to. They returned to the gala, and Noah made it through the rest of the evening on autopilot. But Jason's words stayed with him, burrowing deep. By the time Lila dropped him off at his apartment just after midnight, Noah was exhausted in every possible way. Same time next week? Lila asked as he unbuckled his seatbelt. Yeah, same time. He climbed out, watched her drive away, and stood on the sidewalk for a long time, wondering what he was really doing. Inside, his mom was asleep on the couch, the TV playing softly. Noah covered her with a blanket, checked on Mia, who was sprawled across her bed like a starfish, and then collapsed into his own bed without bothering to change out of the tuxedo. Tomorrow, he'd go back to his real life. But tonight, he let himself exist in the space between worlds, not quite belonging to either one. And he still wasn't sure if that was freedom or just a different kind of trap. The weeks that followed the gala blurred into a rhythm Noah couldn't have predicted. Tuesday mornings meant dropping Mia at preschool before heading to whatever job site needed him. Wednesday evenings were for grocery shopping and meal prep. Thursdays through Saturdays became Lila's, investor dinners, private receptions, industry panels where Noah learned to nod at the right moments and ask questions that sounded intelligent without revealing how little he actually knew about venture capital. He was living two lives, and the seam between them was starting to show. Daddy, Why do you have to go out again? Mia asked one Thursday evening, watching him button a crisp white shirt in the bathroom mirror. Noah met her eyes in the reflection. I told you, sweetheart, it's for work. But you already went to work today. I saw you leave this morning with your lunchbox. She wasn't wrong. He'd spent 8 hours helping gut a kitchen in a townhouse across the river, breathing in drywall dust and hauling debris. His shoulders still ached, but Lila had texted at noon about a dinner with potential investors from Singapore, and the money was too good to turn down. Sometimes grown-ups have to work twice in one day, he said, crouching down to her level. But I'll be home before you wake up tomorrow, and we'll have pancakes. Deal? Mia considered this with the seriousness of a judge. Chocolate chip pancakes? Is there any other kind? She threw her arms around his neck, and Noah held her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. When he finally let go, his mom was standing in the doorway, watching with an expression he couldn't quite read. You look tired, Linda said once Mia had wandered back to her toys. I am tired. Maybe you should slow down. You're burning the candle at both ends. Noah adjusted his tie, avoiding her gaze. We need the money, Mom. You need sleep more. And so does that little girl. She's starting to notice you're gone a lot. I'm doing this for her. I know you are. Just make sure you're still around to enjoy it with her when all this is over. Linda squeezed his shoulder. Be careful, sweetheart. That world you're stepping into, it's not kind to people like us. The words stayed with him during the drive to meet Lila, echoing in the quiet of the car. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menu didn't list prices and the sommelier spoke 3 languages. Noah had been to enough of these by now to recognize the pattern. Minimalist decor, soft lighting, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations stayed private. Lila was already seated when he arrived, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who looked like they'd never done manual labor in their lives. Noah, Lila said, standing to greet him. This is David Tan and Marcus Wong from Crescent Capital. Gentleman, Noah Hayes. The handshakes were firm, assessing. Noah had learned to hold eye contact during these moments to project confidence he didn't always feel. Lila's told us you're in construction, David said as they sat. Renovations mostly, residential and some commercial work. Interesting pivot, Marcus said, from building houses to attending investor dinners. I wouldn't call it a pivot, more like supplemental income. Noah accepted a menu from the waiter, not bothering to open it. He'd let Lila order. She always knew what was good. David leaned back in his chair, studying Noah with open curiosity. How did you two meet? Through mutual friends, Lila said smoothly. We discovered we both believe in building things that last, just in different mediums. It was the script they'd refined over weeks, vague enough to avoid scrutiny, but specific enough to sound believable. Noah had stopped feeling guilty about the lie. In this world, everyone performed some version of themselves. At least he was honest about the things that mattered. The dinner conversation drifted toward business, Crescent Capital's interest in Meridian's latest fund, market trends in Southeast Asia, regulatory challenges. Noah listened more than he spoke, picking up fragments of information that were starting to form a coherent picture. Lila wasn't just good at her job. She was exceptional. She saw patterns others missed, asked questions that exposed weaknesses and assumptions, never committed to anything without thinking 3 moves ahead. You're quiet tonight, Marcus observed, looking at Noah. What do you make of all this? Noah set down his fork. Honestly, most of it's over my head, but from what I understand, you're asking Lila to take on more risk than you're willing to take on yourselves. That seems like a bad deal. The table went silent. Lila's expression didn't change, but Noah caught the slight tension in her shoulders. David exchanged a glance with Marcus, then laughed. He's direct. I like that. He's right too, Lila said, which is why the terms would need to be renegotiated before I'd consider moving forward. The conversation shifted after that, becoming sharper, more focused. By the time dessert arrived, they'd outlined a framework that seemed to satisfy everyone. David and Marcus left shortly after, shaking hands and promising to follow up next week. Lila waited until they were gone before speaking. You didn't have to do that. Do what? Call them out. I had it handled. Noah shrugged. I know, but sometimes it helps to have someone else say what everyone's already thinking. Lila studied him for a long moment. You're getting better at this. At what? Faking my way through conversations about things I don't understand? At seeing through the performance. Most people in this world are so focused on how they're being perceived that they miss what's actually happening. You don't have that problem. Because I don't care how I'm perceived. I'm just trying not to embarrass you. You couldn't embarrass me if you tried. Lila's voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. You're the most honest person in any room we walk into. That's worth more than you realize. They sat in silence for a moment, the restaurant emptying around them. Noah wanted to say something, to acknowledge what she'd just admitted, but the words felt too big, too dangerous. I should get home, he said instead. Promised Mia pancakes in the morning. Lila nodded, signaling for the check. Same time Saturday, there's a tech conference, panel discussion followed by a networking reception. Yeah, I'll be there. Outside, the city hummed with late-night energy. Lila handed her ticket to the valet, and they waited in comfortable silence until her car appeared. Noah, she said as he turned to leave, thank you for tonight. Just doing my job. It's more than that now. You know it is. He did know. But acknowledging it felt like stepping off a cliff, so he just nodded and walked away. The next morning, Noah woke to Mia jumping on his bed, her hair a wild halo around her face. Pancakes! You promised! He groaned, checking his phone. 6:45. He'd gotten maybe 4 hours of sleep. I did promise. Give me 10 minutes to wake up. 5 minutes. 8. Deal. They made pancakes together. Mia standing on a step stool to help mix the batter, chocolate chips clutched in her fist like treasure. She told him about a boy at preschool who'd taken her favorite crayon, and how she'd told the teacher instead of hitting him, which she was very proud of. That's my girl, Noah said, flipping a pancake. Using your words. Miss Sandra says hitting is never okay, even when you're really mad. Miss Sandra's right. But sometimes I want to hit things when I'm mad. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. They ate breakfast at the small kitchen table, syrup dripping everywhere, and for a few perfect minutes, Noah's world felt simple again. Just him and Mia, pancakes and Saturday morning cartoons, nothing complicated or dangerous. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Lila. Change of plans for tomorrow. The conference added an evening gala. Black tie. Can you make it? Noah stared at the message, syrup sticky on his fingers. Another event meant another $2,000. It also meant another night away from Mia, another lie about where he was going, another step deeper into a world that wasn't his. He typed back, yeah, I'll make it work. Good. I'll send the details. Who was that? Mia asked, chocolate smeared across her cheek. Nobody important, sweetheart. Eat your pancakes. Saturday's conference was held at a massive convention center downtown, the kind of space designed to swallow thousands of people and still feel empty. Noah met Lila in the lobby, both of them dressed business casual for the daytime portion. She wore tailored pants and a silk blouse, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look older, more severe. The panel starts in 20 minutes, she said, handing him a badge. It's on emerging markets and tech investment strategies. Moderately boring but necessary. After that, we have about 2 hours to network before we need to change for the gala. Change where? I booked a suite upstairs. Easier than going home. She started walking, expecting him to follow. Your tuxedo is already there. The panel was exactly as boring as advertised. 5 investors sitting on a stage, talking about market penetration and regulatory frameworks while a moderator asked softball questions. Lila was third from the left, the only woman on the panel, and Noah watched how the others interrupted her, talked over her, dismissed her points before circling back to them 5 minutes later, as if they'd thought of them first. She handled it with grace, never losing her composure, but Noah could see the effort it took. The slight tightness around her eyes, the way her jaw clenched when someone cut her off mid-sentence. When it was finally over, they mingled in the expo hall, navigating booths and demonstrations. People recognized Lila, approached her with pitches and proposals. Noah stayed close, playing the role he'd learned. Supportive, but not intrusive. Present, but not domineering. Lila Grant, I thought that was you. They turned to find a woman in her 40s. Blonde hair cut sharp at her shoulders, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than Noah's car. Her smile was bright and cold at the same time. Victoria, Lila said, her voice carefully neutral. I didn't know you were attending. Last-minute decision. Helix Group is exploring some new partnerships. Victoria's eyes slid to Noah. And who's this? Noah Hayes. Noah, Victoria Brennan. She's Helix's head of acquisitions. Victoria extended her hand and Noah shook it. Her grip was firm, testing. Hayes? That name sounds familiar. I get that a lot. It's a common name. Victoria turned back to Lila. I heard about the incident with Claire at the tech summit. Quite the scene. Claire has a flair for drama, Lila said evenly. So it seems. Though I have to say, having someone defend you so publicly, Victoria glanced at Noah again, something calculating in her expression. It does make one wonder about the nature of your relationship. Wonder all you want, Noah said before Lila could respond. Doesn't change anything. Victoria's smile widened. Direct, I like that. Most people in Lila's orbit are too polished. It's refreshing to meet someone who still has edges. Noah's full of surprises, Lila said, taking his arm. If you'll excuse us, we have another meeting. They walked away quickly, not stopping until they were on the far side of the expo hall. That was Victoria Brennan, Lila said quietly. She works closely with Claire. Whatever you said to her will get back to Claire by tonight. Good. Maybe she'll finally get the message. Or maybe she'll escalate. Victoria's dangerous, Noah. She collects information and uses it strategically. If she thinks there's something to exploit about us, she will. Let her try. Noah's voice was harder than he intended. I'm not afraid of these people. Lila stopped walking, turning to face him. Maybe you should be. They don't play fair and they have resources you can't imagine. So what do you want me to do? Apologize? Bow and scrape? That's not who I am. I know it's not. That's exactly why She cut herself off, frustration flashing across her face. Just be careful. Please. The gala that evening was held in the convention center's ballroom, transformed with dramatic lighting and elegant decor. Noah had changed in Lila's suite, the tuxedo fitting perfectly as always, and now stood beside her as they made their entrance. The room was packed with people he recognized from news articles and business magazines. Celebrities from the tech world, venture capitalists whose names carried weight, entrepreneurs who'd built empires from nothing, and Noah Hayes, who fixed broken sinks and patched drywall for a living. You're doing it again, Lila murmured. Doing what? Retreating inside your head. Stay with me. He forced himself to focus, to engage with the people Lila introduced him to. A founder who'd just taken his company public. An investor from Tokyo who spoke perfect English but preferred to conduct business in Japanese. A journalist from a major tech publication who asked probing questions that Noah deflected with practiced ease. Halfway through the evening, Noah excused himself to find the restroom. The hallway outside the ballroom was quieter, the noise of the party muffled. He was washing his hands when the door opened and Jason Kraft walked in. They made eye contact in the mirror. Jason's expression was unreadable. Hayes. Kraft. For a moment, Noah thought that would be it. A tense acknowledgement, nothing more. But Jason didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You're in over your head, Jason said. I told you that before, and it's still true. Noah dried his hands, not bothering to respond. I'm not trying to be your enemy, Jason continued. I'm trying to give you a reality check. Lila's using you. Maybe she doesn't see it that way. Maybe she's even convinced herself this is something real. But it's not. You're a prop in her performance. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Think about it. She pays you to show up, to stand next to her, to make her look good. How is that different from hiring an actor? Because I'm not acting, Noah shot back. Everything I've said, everything I've done, it's real. Maybe that's a concept you don't understand. Jason pushed off the counter, stepping closer. You think you're special because you're honest? Because you don't play the game? Let me tell you something, Hayes. Honesty is a luxury in this world, and luxuries get expensive fast. Is that a threat? It's a warning. From someone who's watched people like you get chewed up and spit out. Jason moved toward the door, then paused. When this all falls apart, and it will, don't say I didn't try to help you. He left, and Noah stood alone in the bathroom, his reflection staring back at him. Tired eyes, tension in his jaw. He looked like someone fighting a battle he wasn't sure he could win. When he returned to the ballroom, Lila was in conversation with a group near the bar. She caught his eye, smiled briefly, then turned back to her discussion. Noah hung back, watching her work, wondering if Jason was right. Was he just a prop? A performance? The thought sat heavy in his chest for the rest of the evening. They left just after 11, both exhausted. Lila drove in silence, the city lights streaking past. Noah stared out the window, lost in his own thoughts. "You're quiet," Lila said finally. "Just tired." "It's more than that. What happened?" Noah considered lying, then decided against it. "Ran into Jason again, in the bathroom." Lila's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What did he say?" "That I'm in over my head, that you're using me, that this whole thing is going to blow up in my face." "And you believe him?" "I don't know what I believe anymore." Noah turned to look at her. "Are you using me, Lila?" She was quiet for so long that Noah thought she wouldn't answer. Then she pulled over to the side of the road, put the car in park, and turned to face him. "When this started, yes. I needed someone beside me, and you fit the profile. That's the truth. But it's not the truth anymore." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed something deeper. "You're not a prop to me, Noah. You're not a performance. You're the only person in my life who doesn't want something from me. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Then why does it feel like I'm always one step behind, like I'm trying to keep up with a world that doesn't want me in it? Because you are. And I hate that I've put you in that position." Lila looked away, staring through the windshield. Maybe Jason's right. Maybe this was selfish of me, dragging you into something you never asked for. "I said yes," Noah reminded her. "Nobody forced me. You said yes because you needed the money. That's not the same as choosing, isn't it?" Noah leaned back in his seat, rubbing his eyes. "Look, I'm tired, I'm confused, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing half the time. But I'm here because I want to be, not just for the money anymore. For you." The words hung in the air between them, too honest to take back. Lila's expression softened. "Noah, don't. Just don't make this more complicated than it already is." He reached for the door handle. "I should go. Mia's probably waiting up." "It's almost midnight. She's definitely asleep." "My mom, then." Lila put the car back in drive, pulling back onto the road. They didn't speak for the rest of the journey. When she stopped outside his building, Noah climbed out, then leaned back through the window. "For what it's worth," he said, "I don't think you're using me. I think you're scared, and that's okay. But don't push me away because Jason Kraft got in your head." He walked away before she could respond, feeling her eyes on his back until he disappeared into the building. Upstairs, his mom was asleep on the couch again. Noah covered her with a blanket, checked on Mia, who was indeed asleep, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight, and then stood in the doorway of his daughter's room, watching her breathe. This was real. This mattered. Everything else was noise. But even as he thought it, he knew it wasn't quite true. Because somewhere between the fancy dinners and the complicated conversations, between the performances and the quiet moments of honesty, Lila had become real too. And that was the problem. Noah spent Sunday trying to be present. He took Mia to the park, pushed her on the swings until his arms ached, helped her build an elaborate sandcastle that another kid immediately destroyed. She cried. He comforted her. They rebuilt it together. Simple, uncomplicated. But his phone kept buzzing. Texts from Lila, updates about next week's schedule, a link to an article about venture capital trends she thought he'd find interesting. He responded when Mia wasn't looking, guilt twisting in his stomach every time. That evening, after Mia was in bed, Linda sat him down at the kitchen table. "We need to talk," she said. Noah's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About the fact that you're lying to your daughter." "I'm not. You told her you were working. You were at a party. That's a lie, Noah." "It is work. I'm getting paid." "You know what I mean." Linda's voice was firm but not unkind. "She's 4 years old. She doesn't understand nuance. All she knows is that Daddy keeps leaving and coming back tired, and the reasons keep changing." Noah rubbed his face with both hands. "What do you want me to do? Turn down the money?" "We need it, Mom." "I know you do, but you also need to be honest with yourself about what you're doing and why." Linda reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "This isn't just about money anymore, is it?" Noah met her eyes and found he couldn't lie to her. "No, it's not." You care about this woman. Yeah, I do. Does she care about you? I think so, but it's complicated.
It always is. Linda squeezed his hand. Just promise me you'll be careful. Not just with your heart, but with Mia's. She needs you present, not distracted, and she needs to know she can trust what you tell her. I promise. But even as he said it, Noah wasn't sure he could keep it. Monday morning brought a phone call from Marcus at the catering company. Noah, hey, listen, I've got a situation. Big corporate event tomorrow night. One of my servers just bailed. Can you fill in?
Noah almost said no automatically. He had a renovation job scheduled for Tuesday, and Lila hadn't mentioned any events this week, but the catering gig was quick money and he could use it. Yeah, I can do it. What's the client? Some tech investment firm, Meridian Ventures, I think. Ring any bells? Noah's blood ran cold. Meridian? Yeah, why, you know them? No, just heard the name before. Noah's mind raced. What kind of event? Private dinner for their investors. Fancy stuff. 20 guests, 5-course meal. You'd be serving. Serving. At Lila's company. At an event she almost certainly knew about, but hadn't mentioned to him. I'll do it, Noah said. Send me the details. He hung up and stared at his phone, a dozen questions burning through his mind. Why hadn't Lila told him about this dinner? Why hadn't she invited him as her guest instead of having him work it? Unless she didn't want him there at all. The thought settled like lead in his stomach. Maybe Jason had been right. Maybe this whole thing was just an arrangement, and Noah had been stupid enough to think it meant more. He texted Lila. You have an investor dinner tomorrow night? Her response came quickly. Yes, just internal stakeholders. Why? Just curious. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. It's not the kind of event I'd bring a guest to. Very business-focused. Noah stared at the message, reading between the lines. Not the kind of event she'd bring him to, because he didn't belong in that part of her world. He was for show, for the parties and galas where appearances mattered, not for the real work. He didn't respond. Tuesday evening, Noah showed up at Meridian Ventures' office building dressed in the standard catering uniform, black pants, white shirt, black vest. The event was being held in a private dining room on the top floor, all glass walls and stunning views of the city. Marcus briefed the team quickly. Service is everything tonight. These people are high profile. No mistakes, no spills, no unnecessary conversation. Got it? Everyone nodded. Noah kept his head down, hoping he could get through the evening without Lila noticing him. No such luck. She walked into the dining room 30 minutes before guests were scheduled to arrive, reviewing seating arrangements with her assistant. She wore a charcoal suit, her hair down, and looked every inch the powerful executive she was. Professional, untouchable. Then she saw him. Noah watched the shock register on her face, followed quickly by confusion and something that might have been anger. She excused herself from her assistant and walked straight to him. What are you doing here? She asked quietly, steering him toward a corner away from the other servers. Working? The catering company called. I said yes. You should have told me. Why? It's just a job. Noah kept his voice neutral. Not the kind of event you'd bring a guest to, right? Lila's jaw tightened. Noah, it's fine. I'm here to work. You're here to do business. Let's just get through the evening. We need to talk about this. Not now. Your guests are about to arrive. He walked away before she could argue, rejoining the other servers in the kitchen. His hands were shaking, but he forced them steady. He was good at compartmentalizing. He'd done it when his wife died, when the medical bills piled up, when Mia asked where Mommy was, and he had to explain death to a toddler. He could do it now. The dinner began. Noah served courses with mechanical precision, refilling wine glasses, clearing plates, staying invisible. He recognized some of the guests from previous events. Richard Castellan, a few other investors whose names he'd learned. They didn't recognize him. Why would they? He was just the help. Lila sat at the head of the table, commanding the conversation with the same brilliance he'd come to expect.